Hello, Gail. Good morning.
Good morning.
What a
It's nice to be
lovely
with you.
same here on this, at least on my end, sunshiny morning. The
It
sun
is
feels
here as
good.
well.
Yes, a bit of light. I think we
Yeah.
all can appreciate.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. In thinking about our virtual gathering this morning, I felt inspired to maybe investigate emotions that we might have a tendency to set aside if we can, rather than engaging in, and sensing there's a huge array of emotion bouncing about the globe at the moment. I'd love to experience with you the the and explore the potential. I think that's the word I was looking for. The potential that lies within energy, no matter where it is on the spectrum of emotion. Because for me, emotion is energy in motion. And
Mm.
what that does within our system as a whole. And how we can utilize, and I want to employ the word harvest, that raw potential of energy in a very conscious way, so we don't feel like we are the ball in the pinball machine of life, but rather are the conscious choice makers on our life path.
That's really. I'd like you to. I'd like to know more about how you feel about that. I just am. I feel like I want to be a sponge rather than repellent of some sort.
And
So
since this is a feeding back and forth, anytime feel
yes,
to bounce in with your thoughts.
yes.
I spend I think that one of the motivations to start coaching school was the search for greater understanding of what our human potential is. And having experienced plenty from the perspective of feeling at the mercy of dot dot dot,
Mm.
feeling at the effect of dot dot dot, and finding that so utterly unsatisfying.
I
And
understand that.
yeah, the the journey for me has been and continues to be to question if being at the mercy of situations is really all there is for us to experience.
Mm.
And if not, how can we tap into a broader experience that gives us a wider range of choice?
The thing that's coming up for me is if we believe that we're at the mercy of dot dot dot, then we will be.
Yeah,
But if we can challenge that with, okay, this is what I believe, what would a different belief be? What would an alternate choice be?
yes,
So that it's not that we are at the mercy of dot dot dot, but now we have a little bit more power.
yes.
We have a little bit more of a choice
Mm-hmm.
to change what that is.
Exactly, exactly. It was so interesting with last night I felt flustered, and first I thought I was coming down with something, but I realize now that I process energy in a very physical way, and with all the energies around me, closing in almost, um, to recognize that again, emotion is raw energy, and we if we become conscious of that fact of that physicality, we can actually take this raw clay and mold it into something different. And clay is actually an interesting picture here, because for me it feels like a an inner furnace transforms energy from one stage to another. And it's quite a profound experience, and I'm learning to work with it better, rather than it taking me on a ride and me sliding into, okay, what's wrong with me, to rather recognize, wow, something wants to be processed here. And I love our conversations because they help in the processing. They open up a channel that might otherwise not open up.
That's wonderful. And I feel the same way. So it sounds as though you're at that point of, I have the choice, I have the power, I have the energy now to change.
Yes.
I'm not going to be its, for lack of a better word, its victim. So that's an exciting place for you. That's it for any of us. That's an exciting place. So you can make something that isn't really formed yet, something that's just still a little wet, as a reference to the clay.
Yeah.
So you have still the time to form it, to change it, to mold it to a better understanding of where you need and want to be.
You're making me realize just now why I took a pottery class last summer. And I only took one session. It was a real class, and it is a workout, a physical workout. And I ended up having a back issue that didn't allow me to continue. But what I learned in that class was that clay does not get formed and fired right away. Often a potter works on a piece over weeks, and they keep the moisture level within the piece very controlled while they're working on it. There are times of letting it dry to a certain extent and then wetting it to a certain level again in order to continue your work. So even with that raw material, you can almost step forward and step back. It also reminds me of oil painting. Another little class that I took a while ago, understanding that it's layers and layers and layers and drying time in between that asks for patience with the process. So however that applies in your world, I'm curious how it being clay, thinking of massage, thinking of the flexibility of our minds and shifting perspective. If you want to tell me more about that.
Sure. My first response will be, I made a video, I think, around Christmas. I was on a beach in Maine, and one of the most cool things that I learned in massage school is my instructor took some, I don't remember right off the hand, not baking soda, but something, cornstarch.
Okay.
And when you mix it with water, it becomes very hard, similar to clay. So when I was on the beach, this is my connection. When you're on the beach and you hit the beach really hard with your foot, it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
It's just resistant like concrete. But if you stand there and just tap the sand, the water starts to seep in and the sand starts to loosen and it starts to be more pliable, being more accepting of the pressure. And that's exactly what a muscle does. Because if you hit a muscle really hard, like if you just, too much force, it resists you. Your body starts to tense up, the muscle contracts, and there's no way you're going to get into the depth of the pain in that muscle. So if you coax the muscle, if you, stroke it and keep tenderness on it, but pressure, it'll start to loosen up. It'll start to give and forgive. And then you can go into the layers that are the trouble, that where the tightness and where the injury or where the affected tissue is. So it takes a minute to really, first of all, understand the layers and understand how to get to them, and really take your time and go through each layer, because they matter. Each layer, it has its job.
Yes.
As our emotions, each layer of our emotions, each layer of our responses to something have a job. It protects us. It lets us take a minute to see, wow, this is really happening, or, oh, this is really happening. So we can have the choice on each level of our understanding of what it is.
Yes.
So does this make sense?
Yeah, what just came out so beautiful. It's almost like a blossoming bloom here. The line, tenderness is the answer to tension, not force.
Absolutely.
Tenderness is the answer to tension, not force. How profound of a statement. Thank you for helping me to see that so clearly.
That's beautiful. I love that that comparison.
Yeah.
It's on physical or emotional.
Exactly.
That's beautiful. I love that.
And you just showcased so beautifully in the two examples, the sand as well as the physical human body in this case. Nature shows us that truth if we just pay attention.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And we can keep punching the same concrete over and over again and wonder why it's not working and only is crumbling under our hands.
And expect it to work. Or we can change our approach completely to what seems non-logical at first. That something so hardened, you soften gently rather than yet compacted more. That is Resistance.
so powerful. That is so powerful. The other piece that the physical body memory for me was profound when you spoke about the beach. The sensation of standing in the surf on the sand, and you can feel the sand just floating away, evaporating under your feet.
Yes,
which
exactly.
is such a powerful, almost surreal experience of standing on firm ground, yet knowing that firmness has softness built within it.
And it's soaking you in. It's taking you in on its levels.
Yes.
Each rush of water takes more of the hardness, more of the tension, and it draws you deeper in.
Yes.
A better understanding, a better feeling. It's really pretty profound to experience that.
So applying that picture to emotions being that kind of a sand that want to take you in and want to allow you to explore something that is meaningful but only comes forth with tender patience and being with the moment fully. Yes, we can step out of the sand and further up the beach or leave the beach altogether. That's a choice. But the experience of surrendering to that sand and surf is one of a kind, isn't it? And it connects us and it frees us at the same time.
Yeah. And you know what I was just feeling is that feeling of the rush and you going deeper into the sand and the life that's under us still. The little creatures that habitat there, and they count on that ebb and flow. They count on us, making the sand go and the rush of the sand so that they have more control in their environment. So it's really a cool connection of man and beast, if these little fellas can be beasts, but that we are kind of entering their realm of reality.
We do. I saw a picture the other day of sand kernels under a microscope, and each kernel has its own color and shape, and they actually resemble the shape and colors of seashells when
Oh
you
my
look at
God.
them magnified
Well,
that way.
isn't that what happens to seashells? They get crushed up
Exactly. But in the essence, they're still there, and you are highlighting that for me. It's the macroscope and microscope of world where everything repeats in layers, and how our bodies are just one variation of a repeated pattern within nature that we can utilize by understanding the pattern and working with the patterns rather than feeling tense and unsure of how we fit in. We fit in perfectly like a cog in a larger assembly. Bringing us back to the emotion piece, allowing emotion to roll in like a surf and recede like a surf, and roll in like a surf and recede like a surf. And you just pointed out how these little creatures are nourished by that ebb and flow.
Yes.
And how can we allow our emotions to actually nourish us through our own ebb and flow of being with what rolls towards us, and then allow ourselves to float and flow with that rather than stiffen against it in defense. And I'm sure you have something to say about that.
I do. One of the things that I feel as you explain that is our presence. We need to be more present at the moment. In a few explanations back, you said our logical mind.
Yes.
Our logical mind gets in our way for that ebb and flow. Our logical mind gets us through many things. But oftentimes our logical mind can also trick us to our fears, that they're real. It tricks us into imposter syndrome, that we're not valid, we're not good enough, and our emotions become tangled up and stick us.
Yes.
So if we can be present and be aware of what is happening, our logic is getting in our way, our fear is massively getting in our way. But if we take that minute, give that tenderness, give that whole heart of openness, that changes, that gives the tenderness to have the answer that we weren't able to see in our logical space.
And I'm glad that you're pointing out our logical mind has its purpose. It's a master data collector and pattern identifier. And we need that, and it enriches our life when we can employ that properly. And you just pointed out the wholeheartedness, and I'd like to plug in the whole brainedness, that we have two parts of our brain, the logical side that brings its contribution, and the creative side that feeds new data to that existing pattern, so we can expand beyond what we've already experienced. And
that's awesome.
That is living a full life. That is rising as, in this case, a humanity to our full potential. If we are not walking lopsided, overburdened by past patterns, only looking at it from that logic, but to expand the patterns that we've already experienced and choose new, more successful patterns that actually create the result we're yearning for, rather than feeling we can only hit the repeat button over and over again.
Yeah, that stuckness. I love talking to you. I learned so much. It fills me. It just fills me. So thank you.
Gail,
I
it
love
goes both ways.
your thoughts.
It goes both ways.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mm.
It's so powerful when you can express your inner processes and hear the response back. That then it's exactly what I was just talking about. The creative components comes as a collective humanity in that way that we have the gift of communication, of language, of facial expressions, of however communication can work for us and how we choose to employ it, and how it expands us beyond our inner and individual circle.
Right.
And that's the richness of life, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what you experience in your work. There's somebody who comes with a knot somewhere in their back. They just possibly it's impossible for them to reach by themselves, and for you to be able to come in a certain angle and with this tenderness to coax that tight spot to tell you its story, so the story can be released, right?
Yes, yes, and it is a joint effort. It is my hands listening to what the body is saying and needing and wanting.
Yes.
And it's not a level of our logic at that point. It's a level of our communication deeper in the layers.
Yes. And what I think, since we're about 20 minutes into our talk, just to be mindful of the time, what I would like to invite us to close with today is the thought of inviting our logical mind to come in and live to its full potential and its glory, which it has. It is really not a question of either or. And I'm sure you've come across that in your coaching work and in your massage therapy work, where you can see that loosened spot in that person's back suddenly clicked something in place for them when it comes to understanding who they are, who they've been, and who they want to become. How true is that?
I do agree with you. When we can allow a different understanding,
yes,
that changes, and I love that our logic does our patterns, because it really clicked in for me at that point. But when we can allow that to be part of the other part, it makes a bigger healing. It opens a wider awareness and a wider opportunity to heal, to take it all in, and forgiveness of that. Our body can forgive that.
Yes.
It's really beautiful.
Let's close with that thought of healing and forgiveness. What a timely thought. Always. Thank you, Gail. I'll close the recording now.
Thank you.